All right, we've moved on to page 2, where we're going to talk about the minor scale. So there's two ways of thinking about the minor scale. I'm going to show you the easy one, kind of the shortcut to the minor scale. And then we're going to look at the minor scale more through looking at it as numbers, and I'll explain that when we get to that. First off, the minor scale uses all the same notes as the major scale. So we're in the key of E still, and we're just going to play the key of E. And so for your good, it's good to learn all the notes and be able to name them. So I challenge you to do that. But what we're going to look at here is all of these notes are the notes that we would use for a minor scale somewhere. And the minor scale, that is the relative minor scale, the same way that you would use the word relative to describe someone you're related to, that's kind of how you could think of this. Relative can also mean the difference doesn't really matter. It's relative. That's another way to think of the difference between the minor scale that is relative to the major scale. So here we have E, but if we go down to the 6th position in the key of E, which is a C sharp. So look at that scale right there, and you'll see that the 6th position, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's a C sharp. So if we start on C sharp and play all the same notes up an octave to the next C sharp, that's all the same notes as the key of E major, but now it's C sharp minor, just because we're starting and ending on C sharp. That's one way of finding your minor key, is just to think of it as, okay, I'm playing an E, what is the 6th position or 6th note in that key? That is my minor scale. Here's how you get a minor scale. You're going to shift some of those notes over. So when we have 1, 2, 3, we have 1 to 2 as a whole step, and then 2 to 3 is a whole step. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to take the 3 and move it closer to the 2. We're going to flat the 3 by moving it down. So here's what it would look like normally. E, F sharp, G sharp. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take this G sharp and send it down to a G. So now instead of a 3, it's a flat 3, okay? So track with me on this. We're going to flat 3 of the notes in the key of E. We're going to flat the 3rd position, the 6th position, and the 7th position of the scale. So all right. So that is the E minor scale. So instead of there's the major 3rd, that's the minor 3rd. The 4 and the 5 are the same. Then instead of going 6, 7, 1, we're going to go 6, 7, 1. Hear that? Okay, now we're going to move it to guitar. And it's written out there for you. I wrote it out like this. Okay, follow? So here's how the major scale looked before. All those are major notes. Here we go with the minor ones. Okay, so this way of thinking relates to what we're going to talk about later called modes. And the minor scale, when we're thinking about the flatted notes, is a mode that we're going to talk about. And I don't really dive that deep into modes, but it's important to kind of know their role and to know what you're doing and how it relates back to modes. Because when you're playing music, you're playing modes all the time, you just don't really realize it probably. So that is the minor scale. Minor relative, and then also thinking of the minor scale as a mode. Okay, page 3 is about harmony. This is really the heart of my curriculum when I'm teaching guitar to people. Harmony is such a great way to learn music and to look at to look at the voicings that you can create, especially on guitar. Harmony is laid out just beautifully with this instrument. It's a real straightforward way of thinking. Whereas if you're learning piano, you have to kind of learn your sharps for each of the keys, and there's just a unique challenge to learning it on piano. But on guitar, you can take the same system of information and move it to any key, and it's going to be the same on the guitar in any key once you kind of learn that system and lay the framework out on the fretboard. Okay, so here we go with the key of C now, which is all white keys. It's all naturals. We're going to look at just thirds, and what that means is we're going to start here on the one note, C, and we're going to go up the scale up to the third note. So in this instance, C is the 1. So when you're counting harmonies, you don't start on 0, 1, 2. You go 1, 2, 3. Okay? So C's third is E. And that right there, that interval, that is a third. Okay? So now for every note in the scale, there is a harmony. Here's a fourth, and a fifth, and a sixth, a major seventh, up to an octave. Okay? And then there's also your second. It's a little dissonant sounding. First, we're going to look at thirds, C and E. But then here's the trick. We're going to go to the next position of the scale, starting on the D, and count up the scale. 1, 2, 3. There's our next third, D and F. Okay, so we're going to go all the way around the circle, and if you look on that page right there, I've laid out all the thirds. Okay, now on guitar, I have this written down for you in tablature. Here's how that's going to sound. So that is a linear way of doing that exercise. I'm going down here low on the guitar, using the same 2 strings. I end up here, an octave up from where I started. So I'd encourage you to look at that, and then down at the bottom of the page, I've given you a little bit of homework. I want you to write out all the notes in the key of G, and then do the same thing that I just did with thirds, but starting here. Okay, so that's the 1 and the 3 in the key of G, and you'll end up here. Okay, so one of the things we want to observe in doing this is that when you go around the scale, like I said, you have wholes and halves, right? That changes how thirds are going to look. Between C and D is a whole step. Between D and E is a whole step, okay? So between C and E are 2 whole steps. So they're that far apart, okay? Between D and F, the distance is different. You have a whole step and a half step. So the distance between those notes is smaller than the major one. C and E is an example of a major third. D and F is an example of a minor third. So those are the 2 types of thirds that we're going to observe as you work your way around the circle. It's going to switch back and forth a couple times. So look on that page right there and observe that the 1 chord is a major third. The 2 and the 3 are both minor. The 4 and the 5 are major again. Then you're going to have a 6. The 6 is minor. The 7th has a minor third. And then you get back to the 1, which is a major third, okay? So that is a very important system that you're going to want to memorize right there.